Onchinsuren has over 20 years of experience in tax and auditing services industry in Mongolia. She's inevitably one of the most influential female business leaders in the country. And currently she's working as a managing partner of Deloitte subsidiary firm of one of world's biggest four professional services firms in the world. Ms. Onchinsuren, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to talk to us. Just now I was actually asking you about the branches or the main activities of your company, of your Deloitte firm. Could you explain the business structure to the viewers?
So Deloitte opened in Mongolia in 2012. And we as an Audit formerly, I have opened my practice in 2004. And then we became Deloitte in 2012. So we are one of the longest, operating professional services firm in Mongolia, and most importantly, truly led and managed by locals.
Yes.
So we have 3 partners here in our Deloitte Mongolia office. 2 of them are locals, me, myself, and Norjumbat, who is leader of consulting and advisory services. And then we have the third partner who is Italian, Max Vergani, leading our audit services. So, whenever there's challenges and needs, in any of the professional services area we serve, we always welcome.
I would really highly recommend your firm out of the similar firms, because I think mainly because of it's run by or managed by a local. Because I found if this kind of special service firm is run and managed by a local, then she or he would be more knowledgeable and better doing the nuances, finding the nuances, and the kind of overcoming the cultural differences.
Won't be lost in cultural.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Could you tell us some of the government's tax policies that are designed for such people, as I just mentioned, to attract more investment into the country?
Yeah. So government is doing a lot actually to attract investment, specifically foreign investment, for the last few years. And I actually had analyzed, whether this basically government is doing a lot, but government is wishing a lot too, So I have analyzed whether really, the government wishing this policy is reflected in tax laws, how they are attracting through tax policy, which I had analyzed. And of course, we should be grateful. There are a number of incentives, but it could have been better, and also better implemented. The issue is because although there is a policy for attracting investment, the implementation side is always left behind.
The problem with the implementation side, is it correct to understand that well, there are lots of interest and lots of intention from the decision makers to attract more investors into the country? That's why they are ready to pass laws that are supporting the investment inflow to the country. But at the same time, the implementation part, the most important mechanism is left out, mostly due to political instability, or not so much of sustainable workflow in the administrative or implementing agencies of the government. Do you think that's where the problem is coming from?
Yeah, I think it's it's a complicated, it's a hard question too. But in my observation, the policymakers are really wishing to improve the situation, and the issue comes always with the implementation is because I think this process and planning well and preparing it and then they implementing those processes, and then following up, monitoring whether this new policy is being implemented, and the beneficiaries, the intended beneficiaries, are receiving it or not is really lacking, which means basically it's administration and operational practices need to be really improved, specifically for tax purposes. I think our government, from our perspectives of the government, they're actually happy that we have lowest tax rates in Asia. So, for example, personal income tax is 10%, but by the way, it's going to be increased now, just last week announced. So the intention is announced. So and corporate tax rate is 10 and 25%. So it sounds like a very low tax rate, and it is actually. And so investors and clients always also happy to know that we have some lower tax rates. So the expectations, talking about expectations, I think, as I said, because the tax laws are very not clear, the implementation could be a challenge. So do please, talk to tax advisors.
I would definitely say that.
let me promote myself.
And that's valid. So speaking of talking about some low tax, the tax incentives like the low tax for certain industries. I've heard that dairy producers enjoy, for example, VAT tax exemption. What other kinds of sectors? Well, you mentioned about construction, or like maybe in general import substituting industries. But could you name the other sectors that are exempted from certain tax, such as VAT?
So instead of by sector, I think the tax incentives are applying to the types of the operations, like whether you are manufacturing innovative products, producing innovative products, or whether you are producing goods that can substitute imports, right? So it's like that's how it's regulated, legislated. So milk and meat, I think that's only for the purposes of consumers. These are like dairy products and meat products are main consumption food items. So just to reduce the cost on the consumers, this exemption, this incentive is available. I actually happen to see some statistics. So how many, for example, entities operating in Ulaanbaatar, registered in Ulaanbaatar and operating in Ulaanbaatar area, about more than 130,000. And out of that, more than 80% is SMEs. So, which means who are the SMEs? It's basically who has less than 50 employees and whose income is not higher than 1 billion tugrik. The gross turnover sales is not higher than 1 billion tugrik, right? So it's about $400,000, right? So 1 billion is $400,000. So so that means, like, the entire nation is really SMEs. The corporate world is.
The kind of tax incentives, or also the requirements, etc., incentives, exemptions, requirements, do they all apply to locally owned and foreign owned companies equally the same?
Same, yeah.
I see. As long as they're registered and incorporated in Mongolia, I see. besides the tax incentives, of course, there are other types of the agreements or documentations that government signs with other countries in supporting the business environment here. Of course, that includes the double tax treaty as well as the free trade agreements. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Mongolia had more than 30 bilateral double taxation treaty, and I think 4 years ago, more than 4 years ago, our government decided to cancel 4 of them. So these are like Luxembourg, UAE, what else? Like 4 cancelled the tax treaties. Now we have maybe about 25 or 6 double taxation treaties, and I think the government is looking forward also to sign more double taxation treaties, like Japan, because we had also entered into a bilateral agreement, trade agreement. So naturally, the double taxation treaty agreements needed. The implementation is again an issue. We have, of course, we have these treaties. Then how do you apply these provisions of the treaties? Is another always challenge sometimes. And it's most of the time. Because when there is a provision, how to apply. For example, how do you determine permanent establishment, which means like this permanent establishment pays tax in Mongolia. So when do I pay tax in Mongolia? When I do not pay tax in Mongolia under these bilateral agreements, right? So these are questions, and then normally what we need to look at is like, okay, what is permanent establishment under Mongolian tax laws? So there is a definition, but not enough. So there's always questions, and always like we refer it to the tax authority, and tax authority is not also not in position to add or explain what is in the law. So it's always so challenging the implementation.
So does it mean that although there are actually quite a number of double tax treaties signed, the implementation part is still lacking, so the businesses have not been able to benefit from it as much as it was intended?
Not exactly. The tax law allows you to assess your own tax. So, for example, as a taxpayer, I have a right to assess my tax, and whenever I have a transaction, a trade with, for example, let's say my supplier in Singapore, and my supplier provides goods and services to me. In Singapore, we have a double taxation treaty. So as a taxpayer and tax agent on behalf of the government, I have a right to assess my tax. So I say like, okay, using the double taxation treaty between Singapore and Mongolia, you don't need to pay tax in Mongolia. So this is my right, yeah. But the thing is, it can be challenged by the tax authority later on during the tax audit. And issues can be like, okay, my Singaporean supplier might have sent me like a bank account in Hong Kong, and say that, okay, I need to collect this money in my Hong Kong bank account, and I remit, I sent the money to Hong Kong. The tax authority might raise that, oh, you sent to Hong Kong, so you have to withhold 20% tax on this. While I'm saying that no, because my supplier is Singaporean tax resident, and we have this contract. They just instructed me to send their bank account in Hong Kong, and we remitted it to Hong Kong, and therefore I can't charge the 20% withholding tax. There's no tax should be under this double taxation treaty, So like that, disputes arise, right?
Yeah. So you must advise your clients on such kind of tax, for example, double tax treaties, and how they can benefit from it, don't you?
Yes, we do. It's a double taxation treaty. It's a law. So how do you apply that? But we always advise our client that because of the implementation difficulties, challenges, you might still be questioned by tax authority, and there's a risk of tax assessment too.
So to me it seems like, for example, if I think of myself as a potential investor or a business person who's interested in doing business with regard to Mongolia, I feel more and more like, you know, I should do my research, and I should do my have my expectations both in the negative and the positive ways as much as possible before entering the market. Or do you think it might be actually beneficial for some businesses to come in and learn while they're doing?
I think what drives their interest in to come to Mongolia is the business opportunity. So I think the business people would make decision based on their business profit opportunity and how profitable it could be. And then the tax challenges is always there, even if you go to operate in the US or in UK or in Mongolia, the same, tax challenges, tax compliance is always always on top of the one of the important, the priority issues for for businesses entering into foreign countries. So I think nothing very special about Mongolia tax, not that very, scary. I do not want to scare away, but tax advisors are here.
What are the tax risks do you think the businesses should keep in mind?
Well, tax risk is for Mongolia, for any businesses, tax risk is, as I said, that businesses and taxpayers have their right to self-assess taxes. So when tax risk arises, is that I assessed my tax by myself based on my reading of tax laws, based on my suggestions, advice given by my tax advisor. I assessed my taxes, and the risk rises when tax authority does not agree with that assessment, right? So that's the only thing, So when this tax authority can be like not agreeing with you is also, that's the thing that taxpayers or any businesses need to understand.
Yeah.
So one of the factors that are influencing different assessments by tax authority and taxpayer is that the tax inspectors have a very big power to assess tax, assess additional tax, right? And those tax inspectors have this exclusive right, power to assess your tax, and that's actually can be like one person's judgment involves, and then also it involves the person's knowledge and experience. So specifically when we are opening to, when we are having all of, discovering all these big deposits and starting this big multinational companies started to operate in Mongolia, we are having more and more cross-border transactions. The experience of our tax authority and tax inspectors, understanding and handling and auditing these cross-border transactions is one of the biggest factor that they may see it very differently than normal Western business person sees it, or Western business practices. So that's where the biggest gap can be between this taxpayer and businesses coming from Western country, where they have all these rules and the regulations are in place, and then where they have this cross-border transactions has been occurring maybe more than 100 years. They used to deal with it. They know how it happens, why it happens, versus our Mongolia side. We are we have only experience of more than 25 years of experience in the market economy, and we don't know many of the, things, the trades, practices, and like different financial instruments that Western countries like use in every day, right? So these are the new things to us to learn, and while we are in the learning curve, people can be like,
leave the curve.
And we can be judging it wrong, right?
So we've basically we mostly talked about the tax related issues that might be more applicable to businesses before incorporating their businesses in Mongolia. Could you tell us a bit more on after they are maybe incorporated or partnered with a Mongolian and start their businesses in Mongolia? How does the process is like? For example, there are certain countries that have digitalized their tax system, or all these tax procedures. How easy or difficult it is to deal with tax-related issues after incorporation in Mongolia?
Yeah. So incorporation is process of registering with the state registration system takes about 2 weeks, and then you can start operations. And so after you incorporated, you're given a taxpayer also ID, and you register as a taxpayer, and then you need to start your compliance. So what is required is that tax returns are required to be filed quarterly basis, and also you need the investors, the foreign businesses or any businesses need to prepare financial statements, statutory financial statements, and these are prepared in accordance with international financial reporting standards, because our accounting law requires that we adopted IFRS as a national GAAP. So businesses need to prepare international IFRS compliant financial statements, and these financial statements are submitted also filed with the finance authority semi-annually. It's been actually also quarterly, but to ease this compliance processes, procedures, the government made it into a semi-annual submission. So tax returns are now also can be submitted only through internet. Don't need to submit it in hard copies and go in person, which we used to be. So last 2 years, last 2-3 years, the tax authority automated this system, and we can submit this through internet.
Okay, please tell us a bit more on how difficult it is, or please compare the situation of employing foreigners whereas employing locals in Mongolia in terms of the tax.
I think our tax laws and the social insurance law both apply to equally apply to foreigners and locals, but the expectation is that by business side is that if we employ foreigners, and these foreign expatriates are only for a short period of time, and they would expect that they should not be paying as much as taxes that they are paying for employing locals, right? But the law is applying equal. So yes, there are like some clients do share with us that these expatriate employees are only for 2 years or 3 years or maximum 5 years, and on a secondment on assignment basis. But the employer, the Mongolian company, still need to pay Social Security, while the employee will not be benefiting out of the Social Security. They would not get any pension, right, here in Mongolia. So from that perspective, some businesses think it's unfair, but we have done a number of researches and consultations and discussions with the Social Security, and I think the law was written in 2000 early, and then amended subsequently in 2009 and 8, and probably the government just the Social Security Fund needs basically a lot of contribution. We are now
That's
in a shortage mode. So we probably need to assess taxes, tax or have this foreign employees to pay taxes in Mongolia.
I see. Okay, last two questions. The first one is, it's not directly related to tax, but it's one of the hottest topics in the country. I think, there has been lots of debate whether usage of offshore accounts should be allowed for Mongolians or for foreign companies operating in Mongolia. I think it's a different matter when it comes to the politicians or the politically related people. But how is the situation like for businesses? Are they allowed to have offshore accounts?
Yes. So any foreign investment companies or any local company can open a bank account in foreign countries. It's not prohibited in Mongolia by Mongolian laws. So opening a bank account is a contract, and Mongolia laws acknowledge the freedom of contracting. So any person, any businesses can enter into any contract with any business parties. Yeah. So no prohibition there. The only requirement is that the businesses need to register the foreign bank account with the state registration office. So you have this business license, business certificate, incorporation certificate, and the state registration office actually registers all the bank accounts and some exact CEOs in that state certificate, at the back of the certificate. And businesses need to have that foreign bank account registered on that certificate, and that's it.
So my last question is more to do with, I guess, your personal, how to say, work style. Because as I briefly mentioned to you, we've been interviewing, you're now the 8th business leader. We're interviewing, actually 9th. We're interviewing 3 more, and so in total we will have 12 business leaders from different sectors throughout Mongolia, excluding mining, because mining has been the hottest topic for so long. So we would like to, show or reveal some of the hidden opportunities and undertapped potentials of the country in other sectors. And by doing that, we want to talk to the people, the business leaders who have succeeded in the country. So, besides all the technicalities we discussed about, and of course, you obviously are very knowledgeable and very experienced in your field, but what other kinds of advice or the kind of tips you think the business people, or mainly the newcomers, should keep in mind when they want to do business in Mongolia in a successful and sustainable way?
I think foreign businesses need to understand and explore more deeper about Mongolian culture. We have culturally very, culturally nomads, right? And we are very independent people. And sometimes, there could be some misunderstanding, miscommunication, when doing business in Mongolia, maybe with your local business partner, or maybe with your local employees, due to these cultural differences. And the businesses need to bear in mind that Mongolians are, first of all, independent, and secondly, very talented people. And the third one factor maybe, which can be in any other countries, any other nations, there could be miscommunications, lack of some, due to the language differences, also there's always communication challenges too. So I think communication is the most important thing. Better have a very good, open and face-to-face communications with your local partner. Mongolians are very, actually, have a good heart, specifically towards to any foreigners. They always know that you are away from your home country and you're in a foreign land, and we are actually should be hosting well, And there's always, such a big heart with Mongolians. And so if there's any challenges, it's just need to be openly communicating, talking to your partners. And I really wish, successful partnership between Mongolian businesses and foreign businesses, because we need to learn a lot, and bring in high technology into country.
Okay, Ms. Onchinsuren, thank you very much for your time, and it was a great pleasure and also great opportunity to hear the insights in your sector. Thank you.
Thank you.